isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.
Welcome to Perspective, a podcast for wedding creatives, where we sit down often with a special guest and talk about our many years of experience in the wedding industry so you can learn from us and grow your wedding business. And who are we? Well, I am Simon, and he is Groot. Together we are Cinemate Films, Scottish-based wedding filmmakers, and we love nothing more than drinking coffee and beer and talking to others in the industry. This is going to be another awesome episode. I cannot wait. Greg, did you know this is a sponsored episode?
Is it?
It is. It's sponsored by With Jack, but I'm going to get onto that a little bit later in the show. Greg, who have I arranged to come and talk to us today?
Today we are talking to Jim and Melissa from the Quail and the Dove.
That's right.
How are you guys? And introduce yourself. What do you do?
Hey guys, well, good to be here. Thanks for inviting us. So yeah, we're Jim and Melissa. We live in Joshua Tree in California, so that's out in the high desert. And we're wedding filmmakers, and we really focus on making what we think are authentic, kind of emotion and humor-driven films that really try and capture the essence of a day. So,
yeah,
in a nutshell, I think that's who we are and what we do.
Very cool, very cool. Before we really get into the conversation, have you guys got a drink? Have you settled down? Got yourself a beverage? Anything?
We are drinking oolong tea right now.
Oh,
this is our
very
unusual
nice.
morning. So it's 9 a.m. here, so
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a bit early for beer. So oolong tea is our preferred drink for this time.
Yes,
What about you two?
I love oolong tea. I used to make kombucha with oolong tea. I love it. We are drinking. Where's the bag? Where's the bag?
Coffee gone.
Oh, here you.
What
you
have we got?
read,
We
I'll pour.
have some coffee from Roundhill Roastery, and it's Colombian, which we picked up at, it wasn't the weekend there, but the weekend before.
The previous weekend it was.
We were at a wedding in Edinburgh and picked up that on the way to the couple's preps. Got them some donuts from the shop as well. Turned up with a bag of donuts for them. This was stashed away in our bag.
Do you remember? This is such a sad, almost a sad story, but just lovely. So we went into this donut coffee shop, and we were like, "Yeah, we'll get the couple some donuts. Why not?" So we ordered 5. They were like, "Oh, we'll give you a 6th one because it's a wedding. The bride and groom will really love it." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." She goes to put the donuts into the bag, and it just bursts everywhere. Donuts flying across the shop. It was such a shame. The look on the wee woman's face was
5 was the perfect number, and the 6th was just too much.
that was it. The bag couldn't contain that extra donut.
So then she had the dilemma, like when she's repacking them, does she still give us the extra free donut? She did.
She did.
That's good.
So
She didn't give you the look like, is it okay just to pick him up off the floor and give them to you?
I mean, not all of them like came out. There was like 1 or 2 still in the bag. The rest were across the floor, but I would have taken them. I'm not fussy when it comes to donuts.
Yeah, 3-second rule.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, now I feel bad. It's never even crossed our mind to take a bag of
That's what I was
donuts
thinking. I was like, we never bring them anything.
nothing.
Oh, we're actually the worst because we take. Because you know how like photographers they have the advantage of like a physical product and stuff like prints and books, and we just don't really have that as filmmakers. So we take a little box with whiskey in it, 2 glasses, and a place that their film will go when they get it in their little USB. And every time we go to the preps, the photographers are just like, "Oh, guys, what are you doing to us? That's
showing me
not
up.
fair." And I feel bad, but yeah, we're always bringing stuff.
Good. That's nice. That's a really nice thing to do.
Yeah.
It never even crossed our mind to do something like that.
Oh well,
Now it has.
But
Now it has. Now we feel like we've got to do something.
the donuts,
Absolutely.
the donuts were secretly because we wanted donuts, and it was like, we can't turn up with donuts and not have them for the couple. Plus, the bride was a fellow sort of wedding industry. She was a photographer based in Scotland, so we know her quite well. It was nice to sort of do that for them.
Yeah.
But what you guys been up to recently? Have you had a busy week out shooting at all?
No, we're taking summer off from shooting. Last wedding was beginning of June, and we're not shooting again until end of September.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that
cool.
quite? Is it seasonal over in California? Is that normal?
No, it's not.
Is that a
We
choice?
had a lot of good inquiries we had to turn down for this summer. Being in Southern California, the weather is pretty good the whole year. So we can kind of shoot the whole year if we want. So it's nice. It's not really a fixed season. But we just had some other things we wanted to be doing in our life this summer. So we just decided like a year ago or maybe over a year ago, just to like block out this time to do other things. And then, we'll pick up again in the fall.
It's hard though, because we got some good ones that were like, oh. But you have to, if you want to have that time off, you just have to say no sometimes.
Yeah. So what was the? I mean, is this like a work thing that you guys want to do? Like, are you expanding your business, or is this like, no, I don't really want to be like mega crushed during the summer months. I want to enjoy my life a little bit. Like where is it for you? Like, what was the motivation there?
I think we're just finding the balance. Like in the beginning, you just shoot as much as you can. Like we were shooting like 35 weddings a year for a few years.
Oh yeah.
Then we slowed down a little bit, and then now we try to have a balance of like wedding filmmaking is part of our life, and then we just have other hobbies. Like I'm an artist and I have 2 art shows this summer, so I've just needed time for that. And then you're
And then I've been training as a chaplain in a hospital setting.
Oh yeah.
So my background is a Zen Buddhist priest. That's how I ended up in this country, and I spent 6 years in a monastery here. And it's still a big part of my life. And so this summer I've been doing a 3-month training program in Los Angeles at one of the hospitals there.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. What's
So we just like having that blend of between doing the filmmaking and we enjoy that and love that, but we also have a lot of other things going on that we like to do.
Yeah.
Also, what I think great about being wedding filmmakers is you can kind of, to a degree, pick your own schedule and choose how much you want to do, and that can support the other things you want to do.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not, even photographers as well. The joy is not having that 9-to-5 structure that holds a lot of people down from enjoying their life. Whereas maybe on a Tuesday I'll go out paddleboarding. That's the kind of and that, I think that's why I love the job. But
yeah, the flexibility and pick your own hours and I don't think there's many careers or jobs where you get that degree of flexibility and the ability to kind of structure your own life. So it's a real upside of doing this work.
Yeah,
the downside is if you just say yes to everything.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the beginning, like when you said you were doing like 30 to 35 weddings, like there is, when you're starting out, there is that, the need to feel like you are doing more stuff. You got to say yes to every booking, whether it's just to build your portfolio or just to get the money in to survive or whatever. Yeah, it can be really challenging. So yeah. How many weddings do you guys normally tend to like to book?
It's just been changing every year. This year we're doing like 12 to 15.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Next year, maybe about the same or less. I mean, what we tend to do is we'll just raise our prices and then reduce the amount of weddings we do. So we're not aiming to like make more and more money each time. We just kind of found the comfortable level.
Yeah.
And then we, just take less weddings and that way it feels much more sustainable for us. We can enjoy it, feel like we've really got the time to spend on each film and kind of pick the weddings we were excited to do. And I don't know, it's funny. It's like everyone has different, I think, aspirations in the industry. Some people just want to like be super creative and go in that direction. Some people just want to make as much money as they can and grow the business or a combination. But for us, it's really finding this kind of level where we can carry on doing this and enjoy it while doing the other things in our life that we really value. But how is it for you guys? How do you find that balance?
I've always thought, because I'm the editor, I've always thought that it's a little bit, I need to force myself into more of a structure. Whereas I'm very bad at just going, oh, it's a Tuesday, I'll go out. I do need to sit down and just like do the work. Greg's more the back end of the business, so although that being said, I'm sure Greg's redesigning our website at the moment to make it more slick so we actually use it. We're creating a website for our podcasts. We've gone through a rebranding podcast, so and we're just starting the YouTube, so I feel there's a lot going on. Yeah. So I feel quite stressed.
It definitely feels, at the moment, it feels like we're being pulled in every direction. But I think there is still a balance there of being able to have some personal time. And we only shoot sort of 15 to 20 weddings a year. So again, we're not cramming 2 in every weekend. So we've just had, 2 weekends off in a row?
Yeah.
Or something like that, which was nice. And we're about to go out and shoot again tomorrow. So yeah, I think there's an okay balance just now.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Yeah. Melissa, I am going to say this right now. My sister-in-law is called Melissa, and I spent many years trying to learn how to say her name correctly, which means I can no longer say the correct name correctly. So if I say your name wrong, I do apologize. I've been beating your name out of me to get my family's name right, but I'm sorry. It's a weird juxtaposition I'm living right now. But you said you're an artist. Where can people find out your work? Is it online or?
Probably. Yeah, it's online. It's just melissalakey.com, or on Instagram it's just @melissa.lakey if anyone wants to check it out.
Hell yeah, go check it out, people. I must have missed that somehow in my pre-show research, so I'm going to be diving into your Instagrams for sure.
Since we don't talk that much about our personal life in our wedding business stuff.
No,
we don't bring that in that much.
No, we see other people do that really well, but I think we're pretty kind of insular people, and I don't think we enjoy sharing our lives in the open in that way, really.
Well, I guess I do on my personal more than.
I guess, you do more on your own.
I think we just tend to talk about our couples more like on our own Instagram rather than ourselves, which I sometimes think we could do a bit more of, but
we probably could.
Yeah, I think we're the same. I'm terrible at my personal Instagram or whatever. I don't really enjoy social media. I don't like putting my life out there. But even Lisa Devlin when we were at the last workshop we were at, Lisa Devlin she runs the photography farm over here in the UK. She was like, so your about page actually doesn't say
your names.
It doesn't say doesn't say your names. It doesn't speak about you. It speaks more about your couples. And I'm like, yeah, we were trying to create like a faceless brand, Lisa. Totally intentional, of course. Yeah, Greg, make a note of that. We need to work on that.
That is part of what I'm doing with the website. As it's not been updated. Well, it's been updated as in the films have been changed on the website over the last 4. I think it's like 6 years old. The website now, and we've updated the films, but we've not really changed any of the copy, any of the imagery. So we're just trying to refresh all that and put more of our personality into there. Because 6 years ago we thought, we want to keep it like, who are they? There's a mystic around it. I don't know why.
Yeah, but because the last thing you want when you show up to a wedding is for the bride and groom to be like, so who are you? I don't know. But yeah, that's the last thing you want. So yeah, we're working on that as well. I did, however, see that you guys were on Love Stories TV. And you won. Did you win both of your categories for best moment and best video? No, best music, best moment, and best music. Is that right?
That's right.
We won those two. I think we had nominations for a couple of others as well, but we won those two.
That was very cool. So congratulations on winning. Do you want to tell us about the best moment? Some of our viewers, listeners might not have seen it. So could you describe the scene and then, tell us how you captured it or what your mindset was?
Yeah, it was kind of a funny one. I don't know. We don't know what the best moment was. We just nominated that or submitted that film, and we assumed there was a moment in there that was deemed the best.
Okay.
Do you
But
have
I'm
a
not
sense?
sure. I don't know. I think we might have put a time code in when we submitted, but I can't remember which. I don't know. It was a really sweet film.
It had lots of moments in it.
Yeah, it was
a
hard to
real-
know. It was a bride and groom. I mean, they had so many. They had like really nice vows. bride
really emotional vows.
Surprised her mom at the reception by coming out in her mom's wedding dress and did like a first look with the mom.
Nice.
Yeah, and they did like a very choreographed dance, which was kind of very elegant and very, very then. Just the whole wedding, like it was one of those weddings where everything just felt very then, very unique. Like the design, the clothes, the music choices were very deliberate. It just felt very them. So to capture it and really make a film that felt that kind of honored that, it felt relatively easy, I think, just because there was so much to work with.
And especially Rachel, the bride, was very intentional about the moments she wanted to have with friends and family. Like she had a lot of different things kind of set up with them, like that moment with the mom, and then was another moment with the mom where she told her she was bringing the grandma's ashes to the ceremony, and she just set up a lot of different little things, and we surprised them. We knew they wanted their grandmas talking in the film, so I pulled the grandmas aside at one point and have the grandmas talking about how much the grandpas would have loved to be there. So there was a lot of kind of really sweet and moments that felt very real, I think, in the film.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure which was the best, but one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, since you didn't know the specific moment, let's take a moment like the first look. Let's take the first look because it's kind of like it can be a highly emotional scene, but there's a little bit of setup involved and a little bit of choreography on our end to make sure that there's like angles and you're not in the photographer's way or whatever. So what would be your approach to like shooting the first look?
We can talk about it in general. They didn't have a first look at that particular wedding. She'd had the one with her mom, but not with the groom.
I just picked any moment that I could think of that had that kind of emotional value with, you know, the kind of like there's time to talk to the photographer moment.
Yeah.
I guess with first looks, we try and make sure that we're not near something that's noisy. You know, we learned that the hard way, like being next to a fountain, or because we always have the groom laved if it's a man and a woman, and the bride if we can. You know, if it's two guys, it's easier usually because it's two suit jackets, and two women, it depends what they're wearing. But if you know, we get as many mics on them as we can, basically. And it's always one at least, and sometimes two. And it doesn't always work out to capture nice audio at the first look, but often there's, you know, just some really nice moments in there. And we often let the first look run longer. Often the photographers are kind of giving us side eye at this point and being like, can we move on now to the romantics, please? And they're like, just wait a minute. Just wait. Because, you know, they have the moment, and then they often kind of like the adrenaline drops a bit, they calm down. And you just have these kind of sweet, tender exchanges between the couple that you could easily ignore that or just kind of be like, okay, let's move on. But often there's just some really, you know, they'll be like, oh yeah, look at your dress, or look at what you're wearing, or they'll talk about what they did that morning when they didn't see each other. And it's just little moments like that we're always looking out for, because, you know, you have all the major moments of the day that you've got to capture, but it's often those in-between moments that are easy to miss, where we think that a lot of personality is revealed. And there's just something more, again, authentic or real about looking out for those moments rather than just sticking with the big points of the day and kind of missing some of those quieter bits.
Yeah.
And I think we just usually, with the photographer for first look, just right before, if it's one we haven't worked with, we just say, hey, once they get there and get going, we like to let it run till they turn to us and say they're done rather than interrupt.
Yeah.
And they always say, I feel like they always say, oh yeah, that's what we do too, but
Yeah.
You know they're just itching to get in there.
Yeah.
yeah, because they've shot it's the same shot over and over again at that point for a photographer. So but, usually they're fine with that.
Yeah, so then usually for the location of the first look, we're more willing for the photographer to pick that.
Okay.
We can work with them, or sometimes we'll end up picking it, but often we're less fussy about that because we know that the audio and the moment is more important.
Yeah.
So because we're going to like maybe take longer on the first look than the photographer might want to, we're more inclined just to let them have more control over the location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of like the actual shooting, would you both be shooting the moment together? Would you both have different focal lengths on, or?
Yeah, we tend to shoot, if we're together, Jim shoots more wide and I'll shoot tight, kind of the 85, or depends on the...
That doesn't always work so well on first looks, actually. That's one area where because sometimes then we have one shot which is a bit wider than the other if we're doing like kind of 45 angles.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we'll often put like just, like a gimbal that has feet on the ground just to get like a wide center shot. And you get photographers walking in front of that and stuff. It's just like a safety or another angle.
Yeah.
Which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. So we could probably be better about like having matching focal lengths for the first look. But sometimes it works to have one that's wide and one tighter, and other times it'd be nice if they're more matching. So you never quite know till you get into the moment, So.
Yeah. There's a bloody fly in the office. How did you get in here? What? We're kind of similar. So I'll usually shoot with a 35, and Greg's usually on an 85.
Yeah.
And usually, because Greg's on the 85, I set him to be capture the emotion, like the reaction. So when that groom turns around, I want to see a face on Greg's angle. And I find it works quite well when you set the scene, and that's good. You're seeing the bride walk towards the groom, or man, woman, groom, whoever it is. Sorry, that was very clumsily said. I do apologize. And the moment happens, and then one of them turns around, and then that's where I don't really get anything, but I know that Greg's got the emotional bit, that kind of close shot. So I quite like the fact that you might not have the same focal length, but that's just me.
Yeah. It does work. It does work. It just depends. Like sometimes we'll have couples that want to do their vows at first look too. Like they don't want to do it in front of everyone.
Oh, interesting.
And then at that
Okay.
point, it's more like we want the setup to be more similar to how we do it at a ceremony.
Yeah.
Where you have two tight angles at 45 degrees.
Oh, yeah,
I feel like it's those ones where it would be nicer to have the matching focal lengths. But for the average first look, I think what you're saying is, absolutely right. That normally works in combination.
Yeah.
We've had couples lately too that want to do more where they don't walk all the way up. They like walk part way, and then the other one turns, and they see each other at a distance. You can see the whole outfit.
Okay.
Yeah, that's been the trend this year.
Which I kind of like. I think the tap and turn does feel a bit contrived, whereas that one feels a little more natural, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Have we ever had a couple do their vows? I don't ever
I think we've had it. There was at least once where they did letters to each other. They did vows again at ceremony.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I think there has been vows as well.
Okay. Just not remembering right. Anyway.
We were talking to Savannah Groves recently. She is a girl on her phone, does wedding films on her iPhone, and when you told her we were going to speak to you, like a lot of people, she got quite excited. She was like, "Oh, that's amazing! Like, can't wait to hear what they say."
Yeah, big fan.
And she had a few questions. One in particular was she wanted to know your deep why for wedding films. So, sort of, what's your deep, meaningful why for doing what you do?
Ooh.
A deep why.
Deep why.
I mean, I think for me, I really like creating something that people will have for a long time, and creating something that will take them back to the day to feel really like, oh, that was my day, and oh, I hear my grandma talking, or oh, there's a moment I didn't see or I forgot. And I guess just to me, like family is very important. So I think I often focus a lot on family when I'm shooting, and that's something couples say to us that they like about our films, that we're not just focused on the couple and their love story. It's sort of like about the aspect of the wedding that's like a gathering together of either their family or chosen family or closest friends. And just, I guess that part of it for me is what gets me, that's what I enjoy most in the edit, is kind of finding those moments and putting them together rather than really epic, cool shots because I'm not as good at that part either.
Yeah, I don't think that's really our strength. You know, we're not like the best shooters or the best editors in the world, but I think we're good at just like paying attention to those moments on the day and knowing how to bring them out and kind of bring them to life in the edit. And I'd say like, you know, our why at the beginning was not a deep why, it was a fairly shallow why. It was, you know, we used to do more commercial product photography and things like that. And we got married in 2016 and tiny wedding just in our backyard here, just, you know, like 20 guests or something. And we hired a photographer for like, what, 3-4 hours? And that was our biggest expense of the day, you know, it's like a super cheap wedding. And we couldn't quite believe how much we paid her. Like, she did a lovely job, but we're like, wow, like comparing to what the commercial work we've been doing, where you have to like negotiate and like write these lengthy contracts and like do all these revisions. And it's like, this seems like a possible way of making a living. Plus, I think when we got married ourselves, it sounds like a funny thing to say, but we were very, very touched by how meaningful our own wedding felt. And I think we were both somewhat ambivalent maybe about getting married. It wasn't something either of us had been like, you know.
Well, not about getting married, but about having a wedding. I think we've been together for so long, I thought it wasn't going to feel special.
Right.
It was like, oh, we've already been together for like 8 years. Like, this is just a formality kind of a thing.
Right,
but then it was really special.
It was really
like
special.
A lot,
yeah.
like more special of a day than we expected. So I think that gave us a new perspective on weddings. Whereas before, I didn't really care about. I didn't even like going to weddings.
Yeah.
Right. So we did have a different perspective after that. And we didn't even think to record the toasts at our wedding. You know, I mean, we had all the gear, like we had video cameras, audio recorders. We didn't even think to set something up or even a phone, you know, so we got no memories. Well, we have memories, but no recording.
Yeah.
I have increasingly fewer memories. We have no recordings of the ceremony or the speeches. And I feel like that was definitely something that in hindsight, it would have been nice to have. So, and I think as what Melissa was saying, that kind of deeper why has grown over time of doing the weddings and really seeing, we've had, you know, a few couples get back to us and say that there've been family members that have passed away since the wedding. And did we have more footage of them?
Yeah.
And, you know, so there's been a few times where we're able to go back, and because of the way we shoot, it's very documentary style. We're capturing a lot of content. You know, only a fraction of which goes in the film, but we often do end up with like lots of footage of any given person, like a mom or a brother, that doesn't make it into the film. But then when we go back, we can kind of pull that together, and that just feels like such a nice thing to give someone that's you know going through grief or what it might be. Something that we're able to kind of capture and give to them. So just that idea of like really capturing this big celebration in someone's life, well, all the generations come together, you know, it's just this nexus of like everyone in their life come together. And so, yeah, I think we've seen over the years that that's become more of our focus, because we see that's the feedback we get and our own understanding. That's really what's of value, you know, more than just, I think we were more excited about more slick stuff at the beginning, and then over time it shifted to something that just felt more real and authentic, and something that would really serve the couple and the whole family for years to come.
Yeah. I think
and just for the particular couples that we get, because some people want cooler.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're kind of similar. Like my sort of wise, like I love going back and digitizing VHS tapes that we had from when we were kids and looking at them. And we talk on our website about creating the couple's visual legacy and stuff like that. And I like the fact that these will, in 30 years' time, be the memories that people will be looking back on and going, oh, wow, that's the fashion back then, and that's what you guys sounded like and stuff.
Yeah.
I loved when you said that you pulled the grandmothers and got them to leave a message. That's something that I've never thought of doing. Like, people always think, oh, guest messages, and they're like, oh, boring. But for them, having their grandparents' voice to hear it and them saying emotional words, that'll mean a lot in years to come.
Yeah, and that's something that we got from one of our earlier films.
It's still on our website.
Yeah.
The one with surfers, if people are on our... It starts with a surfing scene.
Right, in San Diego. It's Bree and Brock, the couple's names. And Bree had a vision that she really wanted to include the grandmas because they were so special to her. So that was her request, and we did that in their film. And so we wouldn't have thought of that either. But that's one of the really nice things about, if you have creative couples too, they have like these kind of inspiring ideas of how they want to do things. And then, you know, you got to meet them and kind of bring your own creativity to match it and find out how to bring that to life. But I think we've had a few couples like that where they have a real vision, and that really inspires us and sometimes changes our approach for future films. And then other people see like that grandma moment. We've had so many people say they loved that and wanted something like that in their film. And, you know, and then it just becomes part of your style as you kind of go forward. So, yeah, I think being open to the creativity of our couples too, and not just being fixed on like, no, we're the filmmakers, we know what we're doing, you know, and just being open to their ideas. And I think that's really helped us learn and grow.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. I'm gonna do a wee cheeky plug here, so do excuse the plug. Listeners, if you want more perspective content, you can join us on YouTube and Instagram at Perspective by Cinemate, and you can also join our mailing list over at our brand new website at www.perspectivebycinemate.com. So please come and join us at all of those new places. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, thank you guys.
You mentioned that you'd been doing commercial work, and I think you were also doing some independent film as well before doing weddings. But what's your sort of feeling on the wedding industry as a whole? Is there a good community around in California and online? How do you feel about the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are maybe not as involved as some other people are, but I think like there's a great community of vendors out here that we like working with. I mean, it's a nice, I think actually, because we've only worked in California, I think it is an especially nice place to be doing weddings, because there's a lot of weddings. There's a lot of really nice weddings. And it's a place people come to have like, I think like fun and laid back weddings a lot of the time, at least in SoCal, because they're getting married in the desert or at the beach. We're kind of in that scene where it's like, some of them are tipping into the luxury market, but it's like casual, like you're still barefoot on the beach and things like that. And it's a nice industry here, I think.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, we don't know as many videographers, you know, obviously just because you don't work with other videographers. And we know some people in Southern California and a few other people, but we don't spend a lot of time in like online groups or things like that. But I think, yeah, we definitely value the relationships we have with photographers and planners. Probably the primary ones that we get more referrals from and just have good kind of creative relationships with, you know, especially photographers. I'm sure you guys have the same thing. There's just some photographers you enjoy working with. You have a similar vision, you work well together, you have that connection, and you're as excited when you get to shoot weddings together. And California, there's just so many wedding photographers that we're typically working with new people every time, but there's definitely a handful of people we work with over and over, and we really appreciate those relationships.
Yeah.
What about there? What's the industry like in Scotland? Did you work mostly in Scotland, or do you work all over?
We do. We used to travel about a bit more in Europe, but me personally, I don't really enjoy the traveling aspect of doing destination weddings. Also, I had kids, so I really didn't want to do destination weddings. So there was one point kind of earlier on where I told Greg, we're rebranding. We're not rebranding. We're just changing our clients.
Focus,
yeah. And then, at the time, I still enjoy watching Outlander, the TV show. I don't know if you watch it. Greg's like, no, don't. Anyway, I do, sorry. And I thought, well, a lot of people come to Scotland to get married for, you know, just that Scottish wedding vibe. And so we thought, there's our clients right there. People who come to this country and want a great experience, whether that be they're eloping here and they're in the hills, or they're having a big wedding.
I think
we love doing both.
For the size of country in Scotland, there's a amazing amount of really good quality photographers that it's great to just work with them and, as you say, build relationships with them and planners.
Yeah.
So it's quite a good community around here, and there's the odd time where we'll meet up at the pub for a sort of social event, which is nice.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is
nice.
that is always nice. Do you ever meet up socially for gatherings, like actually face to face with people, or is it just too big a city?
We did a couple in like pre-pandemic in San Diego. There was I can't remember who organized it now, but there's a couple of meetups we went to, and
Audrey Alba organized it, I think.
yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, where we live is quite rural.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's not many people around here. We've met the other photographers that live here, most of them. There's another videographer that we refer a lot, but we've never met them in person. But it's not like a ton, I guess, right where we are.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, San Diego's about 2 hours away, and there's a lot in that area. So we have gone to a couple meetups there.
Yeah.
But I guess we don't do a lot of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Just stay home and edit.
You guys are in a city too, right? You're in Glasgow, so
Yeah.
you have more people like right by you, and it's that social aspect's
Yeah.
is probably easier.
Yeah,
I know.
definitely.
I think sometimes being Scottish, you forget how big the states are. So it's like, oh, the next city is like 5 hours away. I'm like, oh, fuck, right, okay, cool.
No, it's just a different scale. It's like growing up in England. It's like I grew up a couple of hours outside of London, and in my
Right.
mind, that's a long way from London, you know?
Yeah.
But then living in California, like we're 2 hours from LA, about 2.5 hours from San Diego. And then we kind of think of them more like where we live, you know, still the same area. So the scale is just crazy different. Like it takes a while to get your head around it, but
Yeah.
in Southern California, you get used to just driving a lot. A lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine.
So talking about like on a wedding day, do you guys always work as a duo? And if you do you have like separate roles that you each do specifically on the day?
Yeah, we always work together.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
You do everything hard. That's how I think of it.
That's like Simon. I'll let him do all the work.
You let me do all the work? Going around pointing
Just plugging in the audio equipment, basically.
He has a.
That's
Yeah.
that's the hard job. The audio is the thing that it's in the back of my mind. What happens if I've forgotten to switch that off or switch that on? What happens if that person's mic dies? Well, it's always the audio for me. I don't know why, but that's why I let Greg deal with the audio. And to me, that's the hard thing. So if you're dealing with audio, you're doing the hard job as far as I can. As far as I'm aware, because going around talking to people, what is that notification sound? Anyway, going around talking to people, like shooting some stuff. That's the fun stuff for me. But
So yeah,
Again.
on the day, who's doing audio?
sorry,
So we normally start like Melissa will be with if it's a bride and groom, Melissa will be with the bride, I'll be with the groom. And then from there on, we meet up after preps and just kind of shooting together pretty much. And then, I typically set up the audio more often. But I mean, other than that, we both just...
But we are pretty specific. Like during a ceremony, I shoot the side. I take care of the side cameras and you take care of the center.
Yeah.
And
that's
then
true.
like during toast, I shoot the speaker and you shoot the reaction shots.
Yeah.
And like if I'm usually shooting tight and then you're shooting wide. You shoot the gimbal shots of the cocktail hour. I shoot the shots of the people going ha 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 with their drinks. Like so, we usually know what the other person is probably shooting.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
We tend to do that. So I guess that's our roles. We haven't really like defined them out loud, maybe, but.
yeah. Quick,
It's true. We've done it enough times, and as we do always work together. Like the only times we've ever hired a second is if one of us was ill, and that's only been a couple of times.
yeah.
So we're very used to just working together, and we know what each other does.
It sounds like you have a similar kind of setup.
Yes, yeah, very much so, very much so.
Yeah, it's definitely like we do on the rare occasion work with seconds as well. Like sometimes there's been the odd occasion where we've intentionally booked two on the same day and just split up into two different teams. And there is a bit more stress because you're like, I know I can trust this guy because we always use that person, but it's not quite the same relationship. Like we've got a wee bit more telepathy that we know.
We used to, a few years ago, we used to have a sign language system, but now I can just peer into Greg's mind. I don't need to. Quick question. So Melissa, you were saying at the ceremony, you do the side angles.
Yeah.
Are your cameras on tripods, or are you just running between the two of them?
Well, I don't usually run too much. I usually just check them once or twice. Yeah, so we'll have the two side cameras are on tripods, and then I have a camera. We have a lot of cameras. I have a camera, and I'll shoot like some audience reaction shots and things like that. And then I guess at the processional, I usually am focused on the groom or whoever's at the top of the aisle. It depends. And then you do the center.
Yeah, and then we have a camera on a low tripod at the top of the aisle. So that's capturing everyone coming out the aisle. So it's just an unmanned camera. And then I'll be at the back with the gimbal, getting people coming in, and then follow the whoever comes up the aisle last. And then that camera just stays on the ground in the middle of the aisle. And most photographers are fine with that. You know, like sometimes I'll pull it out so they can get it wide, and then we put it back in. And then I'll switch to a longer lens. That's the only time I'm on a longer lens, I guess. We have like a nice Voigtlander prime that we use, and I'll capture like a center shot, a tighter center shot, at least during the vows and for the kiss. And then I grab the gimbal on the floor, which is a wide, for the recessional. So we pretty much do that every wedding. That doesn't vary much unless we can't get to a certain angle because of the way the ceremony's set up.
And if we're shooting Super 8, then you shoot Super 8 during the ceremony too.
Yeah, if we're doing Super 8, we'll do a little bit in the ceremony. But,
so just 6 cameras.
Yeah,
just 6. Just a simple 6. Man, I thought 3 was a lot. Between 2 people.
Do you guys deliver full ceremony films, like from start to end?
We do.
It's an optional extra.
Yeah. So some couples want it, some couples don't. Some couples want the speeches and not their ceremony, so they'll just, they can pick and choose which one they want. But I'll always edit them so that it's in. So, Greg, you're about to run out of battery. Do you know this? Right.
I'm going to run and get a charger soon.
You go run and get your battery, you crazy man. Sorry, like I said, not a smooth operation here. What was I talking about?
Editing ceremonies.
Yes, I'll always edit them just so they're there. I always find it's always. I mean, the ceremony and the speeches, they're kind of like the base. It's the base of our films, right? So it's always what people say is probably the most important aspect of a wedding, I feel. I mean, you can always make things look cool and look nice, but what people say and what people mean, and obviously, you know, what they do together. You know, I always feel like audio's an overlooked part of a film.
So you'll edit the ceremony even if the couple don't want the full thing, and then it's there if they choose to have that add on. Yeah,
because you know, if it gets to 5 years and they change their mind and they, you know, you're like, oh, do you have the? Well, they'll ask, do you have the footage? And we'll be like, yes, because we keep everything on hard drives and stuff. Why are there flies here? Oh my goodness! So I always like to make sure that they're there in case they want to buy it. Or have it. And sometimes it'll be like a we'll give them it for half price for.
But our setup for the ceremony is it's usually I'm shooting down the aisle, so sort of kind of telephoto lens down the aisle on the sort of 3 people there, celebrant and couple,
like a 3-shot,
and then usually got a wide next to me, so it's just getting same angle but wider, which is more of a safe shot. And Simon just is roaming, so he does the 2 side angles but on one camera, and he just moves around for the vows.
So I mean that's probably the only bad thing is I move around, but I don't do it too much, if you know what I mean.
I mean, It's a funny thing because some photographers we work with, they're like shooting everything on a 50mm, right?
Yeah.
Or 35.
And they'll get like almost this close to the couple.
Yeah.
And it's just like, dude, that's so super weird. Like, this is a wedding. It's probably a really nice shot, but
Yeah.
So I feel like
you know?
the side angles are always like often the center one is the nicest shot, but the side ones are usually always safe. I guess depending on whether they want to shoot from the back of the aisle or all the way at the front row.
Yeah. So, Greg, when you're shooting with your 3 shot, are you at the back of the aisle? I mean, do you have the photographer coming in front of you?
It varies. So I would usually choose to be further back than sort of some photographers would maybe choose. But if I know that if I speak to them beforehand and they're like, oh, you know, I'm maybe plonk up halfway through up the aisle, then I'll be like, right, okay, I'll come to there as well. And usually I'm shooting an 85, so it might be tighter than I would normally go, but it's better having that than hoping that they stay below the sort of focal length of my camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of conversation at the start with, or if we've worked with a photographer before, I know how they'll maybe do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I like to move around. Because if I see that the photographer is coming down the aisle and Greg doesn't have an angle, I'm just going to be, I will have found my good spot, my safe spot where no one will be in the way. And I'll make sure I'll just stay there and I'll keep an eye on Greg. Just
So you guys aim to have continuity for the whole thing, so you can at least cut between the 3 cameras to get something solid.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. The way I look at capturing like something like the ceremony is like there's 2 things I'm editing for. One is the documentary, which is the ceremony film, and 2 is the actual highlights film, the feature film that we make. And so my film brain would be like, oh, there's the 180-degree rule. You don't want to cross the line. But in actual fact, having thought about things, when I'm editing for a film, I'm only really showing this part of the ceremony for a very brief moment of time. Obviously, again, you're hearing it, but yeah, so the rules of filmmaking don't really apply in the same way. So I feel much less burdened as I used to do when we were very much forcing ourselves to be the 180 rule, like don't cross the line, all that kind of stuff, which used to get us into bother because some Scottish castles are really narrow. The seats go all the way to the wall, or you can't get there's no other position. So it was, I felt like we always had to kind of really mathematically like be precisely somewhere, and sometimes we get trapped and it just wasn't working that well. So I just thought, nope, I'm going to go freehand. That way the photographer's not going to get in my way. I'm not going to get in the photographer's way. And Greg's got the solid kind of documentary angle. And if I can add to that, then I will. So what do you deliver to your couples? Like, is there a doc edit and the highlights, or how's your sort of package structured, or if it is even a package?
Yeah, so we have 3 basic packages, and it's so it's a 5-minute film, 7.5-minute film, and a 10-minute film. So, and each one comes with a corresponding number of hours on the day, and
sometimes the day before.
Yeah, and I think the first one doesn't, but the other 2 have adventure sessions built in. So that's like a 2 to 3 hour day before, a day after session. So the deliverable is really just the film, either the 5, 7.5, or 10-minute film. That's the and a teaser. We'll do like a 60-second or so teaser, which we often use on our Instagram too, and then the couples like to share them. If they want anything else like ceremony edits or speeches edits, they're additional extras. If they opt for Super 8, they'll get like the full Super 8 digitized. So that'll be, it's 2.5 minutes of film. So they just get that as a separate video. And that's it in terms of deliverables. We thought about doing like longer doc edits. We know other companies that do them, and you can see the value, but we never quite figured out if we wanted to do that or how to structure that.
Yeah. And similar, people will sometimes get ceremony or speeches like a year or a few years later.
Typically even.
Yeah, when their own biological memories have faded, they're just like, oh yes, what What did you
Or
say?
anniversaries. That's a nice one.
Yes,
We often do
yeah.
stuff like when we're doing the sales calls, or we do like a sales call, then we do a call a week or two before the wedding with the couples. Then we'll just remind them, it's like, yeah, and don't forget, like, you get the ceremonial speeches anytime, like in a year, it's time for your anniversary, or once your finances have settled down a bit after the wedding.
Yeah.
And so we often do get people coming back, like 6 months, a year later, and getting those.
Yeah. I find that couples tend to really appreciate that they don't have to commit to the investment now. They're like, oh, okay, we can decide that later and get some wedding gift money and then get it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I just thought of is like, it's really funny if when they go back to a photographer and they're like, okay, I want to spend some extra money on the photographer, it's not to get different photographs. I don't think, right? Unless it's like raw images. It's more to get them in an album or as a poster. I don't know. But with us, like when they ask for the speeches, they won't have had that before.
Yeah, there's like
You know what I mean?
extra information there.
So it's like, I wonder if you could, I don't want to say capitalize on that. I don't know.
It is something.
Yeah.
We have done a few other things. Like we had one once where they just wanted to, like 2 years later, they wanted to film that was just like more of the dancing. So we did just like a 3-minute dancing film.
Oh, yeah.
That was like an anniversary surprise for one of them, I think.
Yeah.
I think we've done a few things like that.
Uh-huh. That's cool.
Yeah, we don't give raw footage. I mean, people can buy it after the fact, but we explain, like, we shoot in log. It's,
Yeah.
you know, you're not going to be able to watch these files back in any satisfactory way. And so we really encourage people, if they want something specific, then they ask us to do it, and we'll deliver it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I speak about this in the last podcast episode? I feel like I always bring this up. I love that film. I don't love it, but I find the conversation really interesting that people don't want to sell raws or even because they shoot in log, it's not as appealing for couples. I don't find there's a lot of like threads that I like to think on quite often because we don't shoot log for that very reason, so that people can, because for our old timer listeners, they might recognize this story, but it was a good few years ago. It might have been like 8 years ago now. We shot an Edinburgh city wedding, and it was like a couple of years later, the bride got in contact with me to say that her husband had died, and her favorite thing was looking through all the little B-roll moments and kind of rediscovering those little gem moments that didn't go in the film, didn't do this.
Like just hearing him being a goofball off camera that we didn't use because the shot wasn't good, but you can hear him off camera.
Yeah. I mean, and this was back in the day where like the cameras, they didn't shoot log. So that wasn't really a thing. But it really did get me thinking when cameras started to go into log. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I would rather encourage people to want to have the raw footage and be able to give it to them in a way that they can rewatch, you know, because a part of our branding is that kind of legacy, like keeping your memories, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was a really powerful moment early on in our career. And I just thought, man, it totally wiped me at the time. Cause I was like, man, it can just happen. It can just happen like that.
Yeah, it's a good point. But I mean, we do, for people that want the raw footage, we give them two options. One is they just get literally the files out of the camera on a hard drive.
Yeah.
For most people, it's just to have it as archive, knowing they can't really do much with it. And then we also offer that we'll export it all, you know, just run it through Media Encoder, just with a LUT. Okay. And that way we can export it as a watchable file for them. And then it's like we shot in camera with a Rec 709 color space, and so it doesn't really take much on our end to do that. We just leave it running overnight, and the next morning it's ready to send off. So good. Yeah, I wasn't log isn't really much of an impediment to that.
Oh, that's good because because we don't do it, I don't know the workflow. I don't know how easy it is to convert something and have it be all those little audio files and video files. But that's cool. I'm glad. Awesome. Where's your, I'm going to go back to what you offer clients. Where's your like starting price, if you don't mind talking about your pricing, and like something like film, where the cost of film has gone up dramatically. Like how much do you charge for something like that?
Our starting price is, what is it?
85?
No, I think it's 7.
7? No, it's not.
Yeah.
No,
Go to their website. It's on your website.
It's all on our website.
it's at least 8, isn't it?
No, I don't know. We better look it up.
It ends at 10.
I thought it was like 7, 85, and 10.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
It's in that range somewhere.
It's there.
I think we start at 7,000 for like the basic 5-minute film package.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the 10-minute film is 10,000. So that excludes
Like,
travel.
I think it might be more now.
And like,
We just changed our
We changed it
pricing. Can you
recently.
tell?
you can get,
No, not at all.
Because we just added in, they didn't used to have like the adventure session in the middle package. So we like
right.
tweaked that and changed them. And we used to include travel in, and then we took that out. And so we've just rejigged them recently. But I think they start at 7.
yeah.
And then
something
for
like
Super
that.
8, we just charge, what, 250?
I think so,
per roll?
which isn't very much. I mean, that kind of covers just the cost of buying the film, getting
Yeah.
it developed and scanned. We maybe make, a small amount on top of that, but that's not really something that we do to, I mean, it's like with raw footage. It's like, people vary wildly in how much they charge for raw footage, knowing that they can charge, whatever they want, maybe $1,000 or more.
Yep.
For us, it's, usually a few $100 if people want it, because we feel like genuinely it's not much work for us, and it just feels somehow dishonest, like charging a lot of money to us for that. So
But it's okay if people do. Charge.
yeah, it's just different, like how you
Different,
structure your business is how you structure your business. But
Just like how some people charge extra for drone, but for us it's just included in all the packages. Because like we have the camera, it's just like another camera on the
Yeah.
day. But then for some people that means they need to hire a second person if they're a solo shooter. And
Yeah.
so I feel like all those things are kind of up to the filmmaker.
yeah,
We tend to
for sure.
charge more, I think, if it's something that takes us more time or costs us more money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Super 8, it's kind of fun to shoot Super 8 and include it in the film. So it's not something that we're making a ton of money on.
All right. Okay. So for all you dishonest people out there, stop making money. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, obviously, like we charge what we feel is a good price for our wedding packages, and we
Yeah.
feel like that. We feel good about that.
Yeah.
It's just with the add-ons, we just have feelings about. I think, as Melissa said, like a ceremony edit or a speeches edit, we know how long that takes us to do.
Yeah.
Whereas copying files into a hard drive and mailing it,
Absolutely.
not much work.
Absolutely. We're going to talk more about your films, but before we do, can you talk to us about the style that you want to portray your films as?
I think like a lot of what we've been talking about, just that real focus on the moments, friends and family.
We want them to feel sort of natural, I think, and real.
Yeah.
And then, but sometimes I would say cinematic, because we do some stuff like Natalia and Zach's car drone opening. So we still do some stuff that is set up in cinematic. But in general,
Yeah.
only if that serves the couple and like what they have asked us to do for their film.
Was that the one?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Really trying to focus on what the couple wants and how we see them and their day, and trying to be flexible in our style of both shooting and editing to really meet them, rather than just giving them the film that we think they should have, or that just
Yeah.
is our style. So we try and I think our films have a coherence. Like you can tell our films have common threads, but at the same time, I think at least the feedback we get from the couples, and something we try and do, is that we really do try and capture each couple in a way that feels unique to them. And you can really tell who the couple are. Like sometimes we'll watch wedding films and it takes a while to even know who the couple are getting married. And we feel like we really want to make it very clear who the couple are and what their personalities are and what's important to them. And as much of that as we can communicate through the way we shoot and edit. So I think that intention is probably more important than any particular stylistic factor.
I think sometimes we're not the best at describing our own style. Because once in a while, a couple will say, "What we really like about your films is they're this, this, and this." And I'm like, "Oh, that's good. We should write that down." I haven't obviously written it down.
That film that you referred to, that couple with the car, were they driving over a bridge? Was it a red car and they were driving over a bridge? Was it Big Sur? Have I made that up? A couple you're talking about with the car and the drone?
There's a few different car ones. We've done a lot of car things, but the one I was talking about, it's a Porsche, a white Porsche.
Okay.
Yeah, by the coast near Malibu.
Oh, okay.
Is that near Malibu?
Oh, yeah, it was on the PCH or the one. I can't remember.
Yeah, so that's not quite Big Sur, but it's a California coast. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Because I really liked it. If it's the film, it might not be the film, but if it was, you said you weren't good at epic, and I thought that was epic. I thought it was pretty epic.
I would say we still do some things that are epic.
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, sometimes you're in an epic location like the California coast or Big Sur, or there's certain venues where you just have to go with that, and that's what's present. And other times it's just like a more intimate venue, and it's more about the people, and the setting is very much the background. So it just depends on where it is, In California, it's like we got the redwoods, the forests, the beaches with like both sandy beaches and cliffs, and the desert, Palm Springs, all the kind of colors there, and the high desert where we live. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much in California, like in terms of variety. Like you, Simon, we don't really love the travel aspects, so we do some travel weddings, but we're like very selective. We've turned down all international weddings just because it just seems like too much work, to be honest. And stress, and like figuring out work visas, and we don't want to like be turned away at the border for like not having permits in order and then not getting to shoot a wedding. That just sounds awful. Yeah. So we just don't do it. We just like to mainly stay local.
I love this little kind of narrative that we're both building up, where it's just like, so we only want to shoot a couple of weddings a year. We want to take the summer off. We want to go paddleboarding. We want to enjoy ourselves. So yeah, we don't actually stay home. We don't actually book. We're filmmakers that don't actually book any weddings. So yeah. So that's where it's gonna get to. I swear to God. That's quick question then. Do you have, because obviously, Melissa, you said you're an artist. Do you have any visual inspiration for your films, or do you think it's less about the inspiration that you gain from like art and stuff, and it's more, hey, I'm here, this is clearly the couple story, like, yeah, I've worded that terribly. But
I think
your influences.
I think for both of us, most of our films are mainly influenced by the couple, the feeling on the day, the friends and family. And I guess actually we haven't talked about it, but I think location is a big part of most of our films, because they're often in a place that's either very beautiful or sometimes like special to the couple. Yeah. So I'd say a lot of it is on the day. But then sometimes we do bring in other inspirations, again, sometimes from the couple. Like we had one couple who really loved One Car Away. Yeah. And they asked to do, well, you could talk about it more because you did the shooting for that.
Yeah, they loved One Car Away, and especially like I think some of the earlier stuff like Chungking Express and movies like that. And in those movies he did, I can't remember the name of the technique, but
shutter drag?
It's kind of like, well, it's like what you do in photography with shutter drag, where you set your shutter speed to say like, 1/5 of a second, and you're shooting in 24p. So you get that kind of, slow-mo, old school slow-mo kind of staggered effect with a bit of motion blur. So we shot with them, and, not something we'd normally do in our kind of visual repertoire, but we did some of that with them. We shot in Santa Cruz in the boardwalk. So it's kind of fun because, you have all the kind of bright lights and the neon and the kind of fairground vibe. And it just worked, and had them kind of moving around in the space. And we got kicked out shortly after because we weren't meant to be shooting there, but we got enough while we were there to make it work. So yeah, things like that. And I guess like there's certain filmmakers that we like and kind of take influence from, but I feel like we practiced it enough now that we're not consciously doing that. We're not consciously referring to other filmmakers. We're just kind of, it's just part of our style and the way we've developed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you ever, I mean, just like that wedding there, is there any aspects of like a filmmaker you're like, oh, you know what, I really like that shot, I'm gonna try it, I'm gonna try it in a wedding, see what happens? Do you ever get that kind of motivation sometimes? Because sometimes when I'm watching a film and something new's popped up which I've not thought about before, I do want to try it. So yeah, do you have those kind of aspirational pangs from time to time?
Yeah, for sure.
And sometimes with ads, I feel like sometimes you get interesting little ads, like clothing ads or things like that, where you get ideas. We got one where we got ideas for like fun stuff to do with the wedding party, when we went through a phase of trying to do more things with the wedding party, which we're not in right now, but sometimes we save things and say like, yeah, maybe we'll try this at that particular wedding or something.
Yeah, I think like, music videos and ads are good for like short form inspiration for doing teasers and shorter films. But I think when we're doing our longer edits, it's definitely more cinema that at least for me, they're kind of drawing inspiration from. So like one DP I really love is Robbie Ryan, and he's done a lot of the Andrea Arnold films, Red Road, which I think is set in Glasgow maybe, and Wuthering Heights. I think he did American Honey.
Oh yeah, American Honey. Yeah.
And then he's worked with a bunch of other directors too, but I just love the way he shoots. And a lot of it's very kind of like rough handheld, on the shoulder, very intimate, very close style, which, we try and do. It's hard to do when you don't have the weight of a cinema camera to really pull that off.
Yeah.
But we do try and get some of that feel in there. And then we watched a film recently. It was on the plane when we were flying back from England, I think. And it was, it's Joaquin Phoenix, and he had to hang out with his nephew. I can't remember what the film is called.
It was all in black and white, right?
Ooh.
Yeah, I think so. And
it was all like black and white tripod shots. And you're like, I wonder who shot this. I really love it. And then it was
Robbie Ryan. So it's like totally different. Like normally he has this kind of frenetic movement.
Yeah.
And this was like very still, very subtle, but just like the way he kind of like communicated with the subjects and had subtle movement in some shots. There's this beautiful shot over Venice Beach. And LAX is, like south of Venice Beach. And he had this like slow moving like dolly shot where you had the protagonist, and I think he kind of walked off set or something, but it carried on moving, and then you saw this plane taking off from LAX in the background, and then it cut to, he must not have been in the shot, because then it cut to him like being on the plane and going to somewhere else. But just the way he used like the foreground and background to like tell this part of the story.
Yeah.
It's really subtle, but just like really, really profound, I thought. So he's an amazing DP. I really love his work.
Yeah. That's cool. I'm not familiar with him. I'll need to check him out.
Yeah, do.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. Something I find interesting when looking at your website and sort of comparing your work is there's a good variety there's city weddings, there's country weddings, elegant, rustic, and that's
biker weddings.
Yeah. Something that, like, we shoot a lot of elopements, but then we also shoot a lot of elegant weddings and stately homes and stuff. And it's just something that we don't intentionally manage to market for both. It just happens and it works. Is there a common thread throughout your couples that link all these together? Or like, how do you market for the variance of that?
What do you think?
I think, again, like the feedback we get time and time from couples is just that we make unique films that really match the couple. And whether that's in a ranch in Wyoming or in the desert, or I think couples trust us that we'll do a good job of capturing their wedding wherever it is, which is why we have, I think, a variety of, like summer camps and ranches and hotels and, city venues and beach venues. I think
it's usually couples who know what they want, like they're planning a wedding that's for them, like they've picked the things that they want. Like if they don't want a wedding party, they don't have a wedding party. If they don't want a cake, they don't have a cake. If they don't want a wedding, they elope. Like, they've sort of picked all the things they want at their wedding, and they want their wedding to reflect them or their elopement. And I think then they're looking for a filmmaker whose films reflect the couples, and they feel like we'll capture them in a unique way.
Yeah.
Or sometimes just couples that are afraid of having like a cheesy film. Like they've only seen their friends like low budget ones that are
It's amazing that they're still around, by the way, isn't it? It's really like that was one of the motivations for me not having a wedding film like years ago, like 13 years ago, because they were just kind of cheesy and cool wedding films didn't exist. But it's amazing that the crap ones are still about. I find that absolutely mind-blowing. How?
There's things for everyone in this industry, I think. It's kind of nice. You can kind of start at any level, and there's so many weddings going on. You can just there's not many jobs like that you can just jump in and you can grow or not grow, I guess.
Yeah, I know. So how mean of me. I just want to say how mean of me. How mean-spirited was I just then? Sorry.
No, we make fun of some pretty terrible films.
Sorry.
Where are most of your couples finding you then? If they're that way inclined that they want that sort of laid back, the filmmaker that's right for them, where are they finding you?
Yeah.
I think Instagram quite often.
Instagram, referrals.
Mainly from other filmmakers, I'd say.
That's cool.
We get referrals from planners and photographers and other filmmakers. I think we book a lower percentage of referrals than people who've like discovered us on their own. And then people also find us. We've been around long enough that we've been in weddings that have been posted on blogs and things like that. So people do find us through just weddings that have been on the wedding sites.
Yeah.
And it varies year to year. For a while, it was almost probably like 90% Instagram. I think it's less now.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah.
Shouldn't it be Thread?
Threads.
Threads. Yeah, sorry.
I tend to agree with that. Like for us, it used to be mainly Instagram, but now it's, I'd say, more so planner and photographer referrals.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of photographers that when they recommend us, people are like, cool, we trust your referral. We've looked at the work. It's awesome. We're going to go for it. So, yeah.
Yeah. It also has that kind of added appeal to a couple where when someone says someone's good and they're in the industry, it's almost like you've got your testimonials on your website. It's obviously that's a crucial thing for a filmmaker to have, but for someone else to market for you and say good things about who you are and what you do is incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So are you guys working with a lot of couples coming from outside of Scotland to get married? Sounds that way.
Yes.
Majority of our couples are either from the US or Canada or sort of Asia. Yeah, a lot of
South
them are
Africa,
coming to get married in the Scottish hills. They want that sort of Scottish scenery a lot of the time. And there's also, it's not always just elopements. Like a lot of the time they're coming over because they want that old castle or Glen Eagles level quality.
Yeah. And sometimes they're bringing their whole family over, and it's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool, especially when you're in the hills of Scotland and they've brought all their friends, they've brought all their family, and it's just one big, massive, grand experience for everyone involved. And you're there, and you're thinking, man, these people are living something that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. This trip's to Scotland, and you're there with a camera, and you get to experience that with them. It's super, what a privilege. That's one aspect of this job that I really love. I love to see the excitement on people's face. But yeah,
especially for destination weddings, where, as you say, it's like new ground for everyone, and it will be something they remember.
Yeah.
And also, I think, like, in our experience, sometimes when people are getting married in the high desert, like, we don't shoot that many weddings up here anymore. But we used to, and I think some people would really like to have local vendors, so they'd really like to get recommendations. And maybe it's the same with you guys. If they're coming in from the States or Canada or Asia, and you vouch for a planner or a photographer or florist or whoever it may be, that's gonna be more meaningful than if you had a couple who are based in Scotland and they can kind of do their own research, and that networking isn't quite as important.
Yeah, because planning a destination wedding, poof, that's hard work. A normal wedding is hard work, but a destination wedding, I can't even imagine how stressful that is.
Yeah.
So.
Do you end up shooting multiple days for those kind of like bigger where they're all coming in on a big destination together?
Yeah, quite often, like especially with Americans, they're used to having the rehearsal dinner, so they'll maybe hire us for that, or because they're over here, they'll add that adventure session on, and maybe the day before, day after, they'll want to go out and do some extra shooting. So yeah, it ends up sometimes it's 3-day events, which is quite fun.
Yeah, I really enjoy them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm curious, you guys on your Instagram, one of your latest posts, there was a couple, the bride had red hair.
Oh yeah.
The groom had a leather kilt.
Yeah.
Were they Scottish or?
No.
Were they American?
They were they both from Florida?
They were American. I can't remember what state, but they were definitely American.
They have spent their lives apart for most of their relationship, but they're two like ex-military police officer types, and they just decided to come over here and have just a really awesome adventure, just the two of them.
Yeah. But it was an elopement, but they went all out and had a 5-piece like traditional Scottish band that were playing just for them in the hills. Yeah. And then they had a bell tent with a massive picnic just for them.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
And we did so it was a really interesting one actually, because we woke up super early to get a sunrise ceremony. And then we kind of we did some shoots, and then we took a break, and then we came back for like a sunset blue hour nighttime shoot. So it was like the full day.
That's a long day.
It is a long day. We had to have naps. Although I couldn't do it. I can't nap in the middle of a day. It's just not right. But yeah, it was great. One experience. And and they were just.
So did those who have Scottish roots?
No, I don't think there was any connection to Scotland at all. Was there?
I'm having a hard time remembering. I want to say there was somewhere. There, perhaps.
Quite often it is a case of they have a distant relative who's got like a Scottish surname, and that's part of the inspiration for coming here.
Or they've done a like a trace your ancestry type thing, and their blood has shown that they've got like 2%. I don't know. Something Scottish. It's not going to come up as Scotland, is it? I don't know. I've never actually done one of those tests. I would love to, though.
No, I think it could, because I mean, one of the things I noticed in this country is that people are very proud of their European heritage. If they have European heritage, they'll be like, "Oh, I'm Irish." And like, "Oh, really?" But they mean like 4 generations ago, someone immigrated from Ireland. But in their minds, they're Irish, or Scottish or English or whatever. And so I was just curious if you got a lot of couples that were like, would tell you, "Oh yeah, we're Scottish and it's really meaningful to us and we love all these parts of the culture." And do you get much of that?
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of the time they're using like the family tartan for part of the ceremony or something. Yeah.
I really like it. So guys, you've booked a couple, okay? Now what? Do you send them gifts? Do you?
Oh no!
Send them a questionnaire.
You're making them feel bad again for no gifts.
I don't even send them a film; they just get a digital download at the end. Just a here's your film email.
Hey, fair enough. But like, how'd you get to know them? Like, tell us about your pre-wedding.
Our process starts before booking.
Okay.
So we talk to all of our couples before we book with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not that maybe only once have we ever talked to someone and then said no afterwards, when we really thought what they wanted wasn't us. But
well, there's one couple we said no to, and then they wrote us these long letters of how they really wanted us to shoot their wedding, and
oh wow,
we ended up doing it, and we thought it went well, but then the bride was Armenian, and we explained that we couldn't license any Armenian music ahead of time, and she said, "Oh, that's fine." And we even picked the music out with them, And then once we delivered it, you know,
They said, "Can we change the music
and have our mini music?" And so that was that was one where we had a gut feeling that we weren't quite a match, and so sometimes that happens. But
that was
we've
in
only
like
had 1 or 2 like
2018
that.
though.
Yeah, that was earlier.
Yeah.
in our
Anyway,
career.
so we do a call with a couple before we book, and we just talk to them a bit, get to know them, kind of get a sense of like what kind of film they're looking for. Like we ask which of our films they like, because they're all kind of different. Like some are very like party, and some are like super romantic. So usually we can kind of gauge by which ones of ours they like. And we just ask, we don't like grill them, but you can kind of get a sense of people when you ask them a little bit like what they're excited about, why they picked the venue. So then we kind of have a sense of what they're looking for. And then if they book with us, then usually we don't have much contact with them until about 2 or 3 weeks before the wedding. Then once we've gotten the timeline and stuff, we do another call with them where we go into more detail about stuff for the day.
Yeah, and we take notes too. Like every time we do a sales call, Melissa will write up all the notes in good detail, which is super handy, because if we then book them and we're looking at those notes like 12 months later, there's stuff that we just wouldn't remember, the name of their dog or like where they grew up. Or all this information. So we have like a printed out sheet that we'll go through. And if the couples don't organically tell us, you know, like how they met, how they got engaged, all those kind of things, we'll kind of bring it all up just so we have a bigger picture of who they are. And sometimes in those conversations, we'll get ideas for things we could add on or suggest for adventure sessions too. And that's happened quite a few times, I feel, where just in conversation, they'll be like, oh, this is really important to us, like, you know, hanging out with our dog or doing this certain activity or whatever it is. So by just kind of having that organic conversation, we get to know them, and then we're more inspired to have like ideas of how to really customize their film. So that process is important for us. To go kind of as thoroughly as we feel we need to into getting to know them for that purpose.
Yeah, like occasionally we'll have a couple that's like, I want a 5-minute film that's fun, that's just the wedding day. And then we maybe won't go as in depth about, you know, the entire backstory of their life or something. But it's so yeah, it depends on the couple. Like we had one where through those calls we found out that they grew up across the street from each other and were best friends since they were 5. But then didn't get together until they were like 20, in their 20s. So their parents already knew each other, and there's all these photos of them over the years. So we planned with them, it's like maybe 2 days before the wedding. They're getting married in Big Sur. So we got together without them and just the parents, and they sat around the campfire with one of the parents brought a photo album of photos of the two of them when they were kids. And then we mic'd them all up and just said, like, look through this and talk with one another. And so we just recorded that, and they just like naturally like told little stories and things like that. So we knew going into the wedding day that we had that.
That's fucking awesome. I love that idea.
I got goosebumps just listening to that.
Yeah. What?
Sounds cool.
I mean, there was a lot of nice things at that wedding. Like the bride had started keeping a journal when they started dating. And she wrote her wedding vows as the last page. And then after the ceremony, the bride and groom kind of went off to the side, and we had permission. We followed at a distance, and she gave him the journal, which he didn't know about, where she had been writing all these things to him over the years. And we had some bit of her reading that in the morning too. So that shoot required a lot of preparation and kind of thinking through how we wanted to tell that story and things, because we knew that was important to them. Some couples I think everyone that would be important too. But some people, how they met isn't the important part of the day to them, but some people, that's like really what they want to focus on in the film.
Yeah.
I was so stressed at that wedding because the bride was a DP.
Oh, God.
That was one of the most stressed weddings I've ever been, because I was like, my shooting. Is it going to be good enough?
Yeah, usually if we're working with people in the industry, as in the film industry in California, it's always just a little more stressful just because, you know, the standards are.
Or they ask to have their raw footage. I'm like, they're going to see I filmed my feet for 5 minutes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys feel that pressure, because I get that pressure as well. If it's like another photographer or another filmmaker, I'm just like, I'm going to step up my game. I'm like, extra coffee in the morning. Come on.
Yeah. You mentioned there about like following at a distance. How do you normally approach a wedding day? Like maybe in the documentary aspects of like cocktail hour or something, are you trying to blend in with the guests, and do you have any tips on how you do that?
I think most of the day we try not to be annoying, but we don't necessarily like hide away.
Okay.
I think cocktail hour, I just walk around and film people.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of shots I have of like me filming, and then they look to my camera, and you see my camera go like, ah.
Yeah.
But sometimes people smile and wave. So
Yeah.
Yeah, cocktail hour, people tend to be like enjoying their drinks and talking with one
Yeah.
another, and it's easier enough to kind of walk around and get shots. I mean, the times where I think it's different is during preps, right? So for us, we tell the couples ahead of time that we like to try and capture natural audio during preps. So we'll ask them if they can turn the music down or off while we're shooting, or at least some of the time. And so that can be hard because, you know, I think we shoot preps in a different way from most people, and photographers, some of them are okay with that, and some of them just want to like direct every single aspect of when they're getting ready, you know, and it's like, it's hard to capture those like natural, organic moments. But so our approach is we'll normally kind of come in, say hi, and then just kind of fall into the background. And so they kind of get used to us, and then we're just filming, and that way we can capture like much more real exchanges between the people in the room. And it's normally of a kind of celebratory nature, but sometimes there's some quite kind of quiet and emotional moments you can get. And again, if you're just rushing them through, like, oh, let me get the 3/4 shot of you with a window light coming in while you adjust your tie, and it's like, you know, those shots can be nice, but they're set up. You know, it's not really a genuine moment. And you need a blend, right? You need some of the shots too. But our focus is always more on just capturing those like real moments. So I think it's normally the times when there's fewer people around, like preps, where you have to get that balance a bit more, and to kind of like work with the photographer in a way that they know what you're trying to do. And, you know, they're not just like, yes, you look amazing, and just like talking over the whole thing, you know, which can be challenging.
but they have to get the shots that they need to. I feel like that's the dance. Is like
that's the dance,
we know that the couples expect them to deliver these like specific shots if they've picked that photographer. So it's like letting them do that. But then also like for me, it's often like, say I'm shooting a bride and she's getting ready with her mom. Sometimes it's a really nice moment after they put the dress on, and then if I often try to mic the bride, and I'll plug the mic in like as soon as she gets the dress on before it's even zipped. So if they start having a moment, that's recorded. So it's sometimes they'll turn in and hug, and sometimes you can get like a really nice moment there. But sometimes a photographer will just join in and be like, oh, that's so cute. Doesn't she look beautiful? And you're just like, but I don't want to make them self-conscious about, because I think a lot of photographers don't realize how much they talk during the day, or how much they like join in on moments. And sometimes that makes people feel more comfortable, because it's not just a silent person in the corner with a camera. So it's like that balance of like making them comfortable, but then trying to like, if a really sweet thing is happening, just being like, oh, I'm capturing audio on this real quick or something. It's a dance.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I get you. So the way that you described those shots with the kind of, I kind of have a similar thought process in mind. There's like the documentary kind of stuff that I like to put in the films, like everyone like chatting and having a good time. It's not like, I wouldn't call it cinematic. But I always ask Greg to do the cinematic-y stuff as well. Like if he's with the groom, I'll get Greg to be like, by the window, like what you said, the kind of setup shots. Our approach is just to blend the two, but you are right. There's definitely there's a difference in the way that you have to approach those two moments, and it's interesting to see how photographers kind of manage to work, because obviously they need to get their stuff too, like you said. But it's always the dance. You mentioned not being annoying, which I thought was really funny. How would you be annoying at a wedding? In fact, the original question I have here is like, people like to talk about being professional at a wedding, you know, where they're to work, we're wedding professionals. And I always like that talk of how people like to define what that means, you know. So what does being professional mean to you guys, and how would you avoid being annoying?
Yeah, I think like just working as a team is really important. And, we just shared some of our challenges. We're working with photographers, but also acknowledging, obviously, they're doing their job. And it's important to get that balance. And with the planners, the DJ or the bands, the photographers, all the people we're working with on the day, really just having that sense of like, we're doing our best to work together for the couple, rather than having any kind of unnecessary conflict. I think that's probably how, as a creative team, you could be annoying for the couple if they sense that there's like some fighting going on between, say, the photographers and the videographers, or the planner and the photographer, whoever it is. So I think just taking responsibility for like keeping things, even if someone's like super annoying, right, and you're having difficulty working with them, just trying to stay calm, stay professional, knowing that you can vent at the end of the day if you need to, but in the moment, just trying to stay cool. And we've lost it in the past and said things we regret saying and had to apologize to planners. And, we had one where the family kept making impromptu speeches and we didn't have the mics in place. And, I lost my call with the planner, and I shouldn't have. I was in the wrong, and I apologized afterwards. And it happens, right? Yeah. Wedding days are high stress environments. But I think that's something like consciously try and do, just work well as a team. And I think the couple pick up on that, and it just takes some of the stress away from them to know that everyone's working for them rather than getting caught up in like, bickering between themselves.
Yeah. I had a moment recently where we just served our dinner. So we went through and had our dinner. Speeches were just beginning. But they were like, dad was before the meal, then it was best man, like after one course, and then a bridesmaid another course. So we were like on our toes, and so the first two speeches were absolutely fine, but as soon as the bridesmaid started speaking, there was no announcement. There was just, she started speaking and everyone was like clapping, and I was like, what is that noise? Oh no! And we just had to run, and it was just a case of like, obviously no one's mic'd, so we're just like grabbing a little Sony, putting her on her dress, and she played it off quite well actually. And she was like, so you already know who I am because I've already given you some of my speech already, but obviously here's me being very sheepish behind the camera being like, I'm so sorry. Like, but we're quite casual on the day, so it's like we're like a friend already, so I think it was all right. It was all right, but I can imagine that situation for some other people being quite dire and maybe quite scary when that happens, right? But
I mean, it's part of working weddings. You just have to learn to roll with the punches and learn how to respond like as best you can, and know that it doesn't always work out. Yeah. Like we had recently, my top mic wasn't plugged in all the way into the camera, so I hadn't been recording audio for like the first 2/3 of the day. And so all the nice like groom prep, like the groom was like playing this like piano piece in the room they were getting ready. Yeah. And as I was recording, I was like, this is going to be great. We'll be able to feed this music in like at the beginning of the film. I had this whole image of how, and then, get home, uploading the footage, watching it. I'm like, oh, you're kidding me. Please don't say. And 2/3 of the day, like no audio, but it's okay because we have external sources for audio. So the ceremony was fine. The speeches were fine. So you work around it. You know,
you do.
You would never know watching the film. Like, I don't know if I would have even fit that in the film, to be honest.
Maybe not. It's true.
She's just trying to make you feel better. She's just, but
I think when I said not being annoying, I was thinking more of like, I always feel like when it's time to shoot the person speaking at some weddings, it's like you're trying to find the trade-off of like getting a nice shot and not like blocking a ton of people's view. Things like that at weddings where it's like you're around, people will see you, but they don't necessarily want to be remembered by the guests of like that one videographer who stood right in front of them for a half an hour so they couldn't see anything. I think it's more things like that I meant about like not being annoying on the day. It's like you're not invisible, but you just don't want to be the focus. Or sometimes even during a ceremony, if I'm shooting reaction shots, and someone notices me filming them crying, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to, not film you crying now.
Yeah, and we actually get that as feedback sometimes from the couples in a positive way. They'll say, we barely noticed you were there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when they get the footage, they're touched at how many things we captured. So we take that as a good sign. And again, like that's just our way of working. I'm not saying that's how it should be, but just our way of working the films we make that we like that feedback when we get that.
And I think that does depend a little on the couple sometimes, because I'll have couples who have said, like, I really want, like, it to feel like you're not there, kind of, to be more natural. And then I have other people that are like, I really want a super cool film. Like, that's their top priority.
Yeah.
And for couples like that, if I'm in someone's way a little bit, that's not like a family member, but it's going to be a much better shot, I'll do it. And I kind of sometimes will play that based on what I think the couple will want.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been occasions where I'm just like, I'm not part of the wedding, but I'm really like, I feel like I'm in the way. So I'm always doing the whole like, oh, I'm so sorry, I have to stand here. I can't. There's no other angle. I'm really sorry. But I do my best to like crouch down. I do my squat for as long as I can. Like my muscles can be seizing up. I'm just like, do it for the guests. Do it for the guests. I'm just like sweat. Like, why is that guy sweating so much? Just like he's been holding a squat for like 20 minutes. But yeah.
Hey, I'm Ashley from With Jack. I'm one of the sponsors of the Perspective podcast. With Jack helps to keep photographers in business by supporting them financially and legally if they have problems with a client or they make a mistake in their work. We've all had that fear of our CF card or our hard drive failing and losing important photos. You can find out more at withjack.co.uk. Head over there and find out how we can help you be a confident creative.
Talk about cool films. I love the fact that you use genuine film. I really dig that. What's your approach to using film in your film?
Yeah, we first got into it. Again, this was like a couple. They were like a super fun, creative couple who we did a vow renewal with them in Vegas, and they had like Elvis as their officiant, and they had like a Harley Davidson they'd rented, and they're actually the wedding filmmakers. They're Brazilian, but they live in Canada.
Is Brave Scene or something is their company's name?
I don't remember. Eric and Monique were the couple's name. And they had a Super 8 camera, and they were filming each other on the day, and then we'd get shots of them too. And then they sent us the digital copy.
Okay.
And we were like, this is so fun. This is so cool.
Yeah.
So then we took inspiration, and then we found the Super 8 camera on eBay and bought it and experimented, and then just started offering it. And it doesn't always fit for every film, I think, like depending on the venue largely.
Yeah.
It works really well in Palm Springs because there's a lot of color. Like you get this like blue sky, you got the palm trees. There's lots of vibrant color in Palm Springs in the architecture. And usually at weddings, people will have a lot of decorations that are very vibrant and bold. So that kind of thing, it works really well. It works well at the beach. There's certain places it just looks, I think, great. And in the desert here, in the high desert.
Yeah, and the feel of the film, like if it's a more sort of nostalgic feeling film, rather than something that's a more polished.
Yeah, definitely. And then like the way we shoot on it too, I mean, you know, using crash zooms and things I wouldn't use on digital, but it's just like using the format in a way that kind of works and adds something. So
yeah, that's very cool. Extra. Yeah. Are there any other like techniques of the way you capture footage that you employ for the feel that you want to go for?
We shoot handheld a lot.
We don't use any autofocus too, so our focusing is often a bit more organic feeling. I mean, we did that, you know, from when cameras weren't very good at it, frankly, and we're using the Lumix system, which still isn't very good at it, or at least the Micro Four Thirds ones that we use. Yeah. So we're just used to doing all manual focusing, and I think that gives a certain look too, especially with like couples footage, when you kind of like, we like to kind of move around quite a lot, and so you just get a certain kind of look and feel to that footage rather than everything staying tack sharp or seeing that kind of weird focus flicker you sometimes get with autofocus.
Occasionally there'll be a wedding that just feels a little, like I said, more polished, and then maybe we're a little less handheld and you shoot more on the gimbal.
More on the gimbal, and then if we did have cameras that could do autofocus, we would use it more. Then we just don't yet. So.
Yeah. when I look at your films, there's definitely a sense of like nostalgia. Like if you were to say that as like a characteristic of what a film looks and feels like I feel like you're going for something that is nostalgic. Would I be right in saying that, or is it just me being crazy?
I think it's you being crazy.
Cool.
Completely off base and insane, I think. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think? I don't think of our work as nostalgic. But.
I don't think we consciously do, but that is a way that couples describe our films to us sometimes when they're saying what they like about our film, which is interesting, I think, because we ask in our contact form which films they like. So people will say, and they'll often say the same few films, but describe them in different ways. So like, I like this film because it's like nostalgic and sweet. And other people say, I like that film because it's so upbeat and funny.
Yeah.
And high energy. So it's like you can see what they like about that film even by what they describe in it. So I think a lot of them do have a nostalgic feel, especially like the summer camp one that has lots of Super 8 in it. And,
I guess so.
or even Italian Zach with the car intro. That's very like old cinema and the grandma section in that one too. It's fun.
And I think we edit our films in a way that feels, we're inspired, as I said, more by like films than like commercial work, which I think a lot of contemporary wedding filmmakers, their style is more akin to like commercial work, you know, the kind of editing techniques and the certain camera moves and stuff. Whereas we prefer the more kind of organic, feels like it could be a movie kind of a style. And then what we use for color too, we use a plugin called Filmbox, which is like a film emulation. Which I think the way I've kind of set it up has an old film look to it, and it matches well with the Super 8 as well. You know? Yeah, because I think you guys have this like great vibe, which really works for Scotland, and this kind of like dark, romantic feel. And for us living in California, there's so much sun here, there's so much blue sky. Yeah, we really embrace that kind of like slightly maybe retro film look more. So even if we're not shooting on film, the way we process our digital also has that same kind of old school film look. I think. Yeah, cool. Yeah.
I mean, you can definitely, I definitely feel that when I watch your films. I mean, especially when you're using the Super 8. But yeah, I really enjoy watching your films. Greg has gone through and deleted some of these questions here because we're running quite long. All right,
let's talk about
audio.
Yeah.
Cool. Yes.
Because
let's talk about audio.
You use a lot of audio in your films, as you've said, and you mentioned the onboard mic not being plugged in right. So what equipment are you using, and how do you utilize it to capture those moments throughout the day?
Yeah, I think our setup's pretty similar to most people. We just have top mics, the DRL 10 Tascams.
Yeah, the little lav
for the couple and the officiant. And then if it's like a small wedding where they don't have mics for the toast, we'll have the speakers to toast people. And then
we just align out into a Zoom something or other. It's like the one that has the floating point thing, so you can.
Oh, okay.
You know, if you clip or your levels are too low, you can recover in post.
So that's the regular. And then we have Insta mics that we use very occasionally for like times when it's a wedding where there's no DJ or anything, for when you need to like really quickly mic someone or they're wearing something that's very hard to mic.
Yeah. And if there is a bride, you're tending to try and mic them, because a lot of people find that as a bit of a sort of tough element. It's like, well, where do you put it in the dress? When do you do it in the day? So you do try and do that if you can?
Yeah, I try to at every wedding if there's a bride. It depends on the dress a little bit, and then it depends on the wedding how hard I try. So if it's an elopement where it's going to be windy or they're standing by the ocean, I'll mic them even if it's harder.
Yep.
Or if it's a wedding where like they're not reading vows, I know the audio is going to be good from the DJ, then I don't try as hard. So I just, when I show up on the day before the bride puts the dress on, I tape the mic in. If it's going to be a windy day, I have a little windshield that I include on it. We do a lot of weddings in the wind, so we have a lot of. I usually just tape it in towards the right side in the bodice. I try not to do the left because you hear more heart pounding on the left. If they get really nervous at the first lip bonus, you can hear their heart. So I try to do it on the right. And then they usually wear the mic pack on their leg with a strap.
Yep.
So I'll tape the mic in ahead of time, and then before she puts the dress on, I put the strap with the pack. I start the pack running, put it in the strap, put it on her leg. If I was a man, I'd probably just say, here, will you put this on your leg? And then once she has the dress on, I plug it. The wire will be hanging down, and then I plug it in. And again, if you weren't comfortable with that, you could ask a family member to plug it in.
Yeah.
If it's a dress that is that kind of new fabric that's like a kind of satiny, so you can see the wire, and I really want to mic them, I'll use medical tape, and I'll tape it down the side, like down a seam, so the wire is going down a seam.
So
so that's a good way to hide.
you'll tape the dress. No, you won't have it on the bride's skin. Cool.
I usually tape the dress. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, that's cool. I like that. Yeah.
How do you guys deal with that being two guys?
So it's usually me with the bride. And usually I will just, so we have the the DL10s, but I don't tend to use one on the bride. I tend to use a Sony TX650, which is a small black dictaphone. I don't know if you're familiar. And I will literally just, again, depending on the style of dress, it'll either go down her chest, in between her breasts, or to the side, under her, like just to the side of her breast. And usually I just say a couple of minutes beforehand, hey, remember, I'm going to have to mic you. So when you get your dress on, I'll come over to you and I'll put this mic on you and we'll hide it down your dress. And usually it's not an issue. And yeah.
You just really have to go with it and just try and make them feel comfortable with the situation, which usually they do feel comfortable.
Yeah, I think my lack of boundaries makes them comfortable. I understand I am a man, but I let them know quite quickly that I have 3 kids and a feminist wife, and there are no boundaries in my house. There's usually naked kids running all over the place and things like this. So I tend to be very open and honest with what I'm going to do. And then when time comes, I will obviously ask her permission, and then we'll just mic the bride. And as long as I'm open and honest, and I think other people should be, and not surprised. Don't surprise your brides with the microphone, because sometimes it can be quite a stressful moment, putting on the dress and I'll be running to time and I'm 10 minutes late, so yeah, don't surprise your bride, listeners. But yeah, we usually warn them, like the call that we do a few weeks before the wedding, we'll try to mic you, look at the dress. I try to make it sound like it's not a big deal one way or the other, because half the time you get there and it's like a dress that's impossible to mic, like it's got a huge slit up the side, and it's like, so then I don't want them to think like, oh no, I'm not going to get good audio. So I just kind of make it sound like, and I think I've had maybe once someone just say like, can you not do it? And I said, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
As you say, sometimes if it's an indoor venue and they're going to be right close to each other and there's not much background noise, the groom's mic, if it's that setup, tends to be fine anyway, so it doesn't matter sometimes. But when you're out on the cliffs and it's going to be blowing a gale, that can get worrying. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I do get nice things sometimes, because I said like I plug it in like before she's even finished getting dressed, so sometimes you get all of that audio that's sometimes too quiet to capture on the top mic, because they're like crying a little bit and they're like, oh, you look beautiful, and it's like too quiet to capture. Then you get that on that mic. And then also, one of our favorite parts of the day for a lot of weddings is right after the ceremony. If all the friends and family are coming up to them and hugging them and they're talking, we'll often, like, that's one of our favorite parts to film. And then if they're both mic'd, you're capturing like 2 different conversations going on and things like that.
I love that bit as well, straight after the ceremony. I know a lot of photographers like to just get the confetti tunnel kind of done. I don't know if you do that over there, just straight confetti tunnel, and it's very organized. But that moment where that's done and everyone starts hugging and kissing, I that's my favorite point. And it can be quite, especially if they have done the confetti tunnel and it happens, everyone can be kind of like, oh, what do we do now? Like, and they're not sure. And I'm just like, go on, keep going. And I'm just trying to like encourage people to give hugs and kisses and to say hello. Cause they've just been set up for this moment where they throw confetti and then it's like, oh yeah, I've done it. Now what am I doing? You need to like reset the people's mindset almost like, okay, the photograph is done. Now I get to enjoy myself. So
it's funny if there's too much of that on a day. It's like people just get so used to being told what to do, they kind of forget that they can go and hug someone. Or
you're absolutely right. Especially when there's like, when the couple are there and having photographs, but it's like it's a casual moment, but we're just shooting. It's like, oh, can I go in? Can I? Yes, on you go. Yes, get in there. But yeah, that's cool. Once you have captured everything that you capture at a wedding and you've got everything and you're very confident that all your footage is good and you've hit all the record buttons, how do you then go about creating an awesome film for your couples? Like what's your first steps?
First step, back everything up.
Good note. Yes.
So I guess, like we said, we do that call before the wedding with the couple. Yeah. So we'll know kind of like what things they want to focus on in the film. Mm-hmm. And then we'll have talked to them ahead of time about music, what their music tastes are. Mm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the first things we do, we bring it all in. We work in Premiere, so we bring all the footage into Premiere, and then we have like about 15 different sequences to break up the day. Mm-hmm. So one of us will drop all the footage into the relevant sequences and we label our footage so we know whose is whose. And then we'll both go through and watch our own footage and we'll cut out little chunks that we think are strong and we'll lift them up in Premiere so they're like on the high level. And then we'll grab them all and stick them all at the end of each sequence. So then we have like our selects and we do that hopefully within the week of shooting the wedding because we found when we first started shooting, we didn't do that. And it
until the edit, like months later.
6-8 weeks later. And you forget, it's like, what was this moment? And so we like to do that, like, well, it's still fresh in our head because it takes less time and you don't miss bits.
Yeah, that's true.
Not to say we don't occasionally go back and pull up other bits, but most of the time we don't. Like those selects we make become the film.
Yeah.
Well, the basis of it, yeah. And then you use those for the teaser. So Jim will make a teaser like 1 to 2 weeks after the wedding.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then from there, once we have our selects, we'll look at picking out the music, kind of based on the feel that we get from the selects and what feedback we've had from the couple about what music they like.
Yeah.
So we'll pick songs out and then send them to the couple to see if they definitely like them before we start editing. Usually I do more of the music picking and then show it to Jim first to see what he thinks.
Yeah.
And then I go through all the audio from the day, so ceremony and toast, but also all the other bits of the day, like post-ceremony audio and anything else we recorded. Mm-hmm. And then with like the music and the audio, I kind of build out the sort of storyline and structure of the film.
Yeah.
And I'll usually put in some of the key moments, like processional and recessional, sometimes preps, if there's like talking during preps. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, about there, I give it to Jim. And
then I just use all the rest of the footage that's not part of like a multicam sequence. Like most of what Melissa's dropping in will be from multicam sequences.
Yeah.
And then I'll go through all the other footage and build all the rest of the film. Mm-hmm. And then I do the color work and then we deliver. So awesome. We've only started doing that in the last year or so. Maybe like a couple of years now. Before we used to like both just trade out. Like I do one film, Melissa would do one film. So we were both doing the whole process.
Yeah.
And then we found that like Melissa really enjoyed that aspect of listening to the audio and picking out the moments. And that was something I didn't enjoy as much. Mm-hmm. And I think Melissa's just really, really strong with doing that and building the structure. Mm. And then, I just enjoy more the kind of putting in all the clips and doing the kind of the fine edit and getting everything in order. So I think we have very complementary skills.
Yeah.
It took us a while to kind of like get in that groove of how we work together in the edit.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
now
definitely.
we're there, it works well, and we just have a system.
Yeah, it's much faster because we're each doing the parts that we like enjoy more.
Yeah.
And at least I'm not very decisive. So if it's like there's 7 couple shots that are nice but are similar, it takes me a really long time to decide which one of those 7. Whereas I feel like we'll just look at it and be like, that one's good, and then it's over. And I'll have like watched it 7 times and like changed my mind 7 times. So it's a lot faster this way.
So when you're creating those selects each individually, is that mainly from a visual point of view, or are you looking for audio moments as well? Or is that done at the later stage when you go through it, Melissa?
We're looking for both.
Both.
Yeah, because we'll know. I mean, mostly if there's audio in the stuff that's not the like main parts of the day, it'll either be like preps, sometimes during couples stuff,
Sometimes.
and then post ceremony stuff. So usually we'll know when we were shooting, oh, that was a good moment, so we'll pull it out so that we remember about it.
Yeah. I mean,
sometimes the visual isn't even nice, and you're just using.
That's
the
what I was
audio.
thinking.
Yeah, content over visuals, I suppose. But I want to go back to you selecting music, because obviously you know what genres your couple's like, and you also won your Love Stories TV category for Best Music. So I feel like I need to ask you about your music selection. Having their genre that they like and kind of an idea of who they are, how do you then balance that with picking music that is going to suit a film? And do your own thoughts about music come into play at all?
Yeah, I'd say our own thoughts not as much these days, and I think that's partly why Melissa is really good at picking out the music. So I think I'm more picky in my own tastes,
Right.
and I think I tend to be like, oh, what about this song? And Melissa will be like, it's not exactly what the couple said they like. And I'm like, I think it's really good. Melissa's much better at like paying attention to what's actually going to work for the film and for the couple. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a really fun part of our job. And then, it's a balance, like what they like, it's not that often that someone will request a song where you're like, just no, like that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Or if they do, you can just use like 1 minute of it or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're trying to get better at using like shorter amounts, because some songs are very like strong in flavor and they kind of dominate the edit.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get better at using just like snippets of them. Okay. Again, like the way you see in a regular like Hollywood film or an indie film. Like we sometimes like to think we're like indie wedding filmmakers, right? So it's like the way that they'll use a well-known song for like 30 seconds in a film, and then it fades out, and maybe it's something more like a music bed that kicks in after that.
Yeah.
And then a few minutes later, there's another. So we're trying to get better at using it more in that style than using like an excessive amount of the song that starts to dominate the tone of the film in a
Unless
way
it
that's not
fits.
working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really fun part of our films, I think. And it's always exciting if there's a couple, you can pick out, you just end up for a lot of weddings, it's like indie folk or something. That's such a good fit for a lot of the weddings, I really like that. But it is fun when you have couples that you're going to be able to pick out.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to use like ZZ Top or something in their wedding film.
Yeah. So I suppose my next question should be music licensing and where do you get your music from and all that kind of stuff? Because we've spoken to other filmmakers who are less concerned about what music they use, commercial music that they use, whereas we are more like, it's going to be music bed, it's going to be art list for us. We're not going to take music that's commercial music ever. What's your approach?
Yeah, we license every song we've ever used. I mean, maybe in a ceremony edit that stayed on private and they requested a song, we used it in their like professional. But other than that, we've always, so we use Music Bed is the main one that we use. And then the Song Freedom is the other one, which I don't think is available in Europe necessarily.
I think we've
so
got it. I
song-
think.
I think it is around, because
Yeah.
they do have some commercial
have it?
songs on there, don't
I think
they?
so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Song Freedom brought another website which is called Tracks Music, which is where there's a lot of music. It's so it's not easy to browse. You basically have to just know what you're looking for
Right.
on Tracks. But you can buy songs directly from Tracks, or Song Freedom owns them. So sometimes if you ask, can you add the song from the Tracks catalog to Song Freedom, they'll do it.
Because
Okay.
it's cheaper through Song Freedom.
Yeah, so that's how we're able to license. Like we've used all kinds of fun music. Like,
Yeah, like-
the one that won Best Music for Love Stories TV had, who was in that?
Is an Elvis cover by
Travis Tritt.
Travis Tritt, a country guy. It had
It had a cello cover of a Lana Del Rey song, I want to say.
yeah, something like that.
Okay.
So you can get like, I mean, you can't get like every artist. Like often, if people want like the Rolling Stones or the Beatles, or Zeppelin, things like that, we often get those
Yeah.
requests, and we can't do that. But
Yeah.
there's there's like, say with the Beach Boys, you can get like Mike Love doing versions of the Beach Boys songs
Yeah.
that you can license. So it's not exactly like the well-known version of the Beach Boys one, but
Yeah.
So you can often find ways around to get most like music choices that you want,
Yeah.
and do it legally and get it licensed.
Yeah. I just
Yeah,
had
so
a.
it opens up a lot.
I just had a quick look online. So Song Freedom, I don't know if they've rebranded or if it's just a UK branding, but it's firefly.com.
Oh yeah, they use both names. I don't really understand
Alright.
why, but they're the
Cool.
same thing.
Well, you can get it over here. So if that's of interest to you listeners, go check out Firefly.
Yeah.
Don't quite know why they rebranded, but cool. Yeah. Do you have any tips for like dealing with audio in your films? And by that I mean, for example, if I have all my well, you use Premiere, so you maybe have heard of these plugins. So if I use a denoiser, an EQ, dynamics on the individual tracks, but then on the master out, I'll use the multi-band compressor set to broadcast, I think. That kind of like adds another layer of multi-band compression to the overall thing. That would be like a process that I would apply to try and make the audio better. Do you have like any tips or tricks that you use to blend in your films, or to announce, make certain elements of your film like stand out on a more technical editing level?
Yeah, that's something that I'd like us to get a bit better actually, and get more into learning more sound design. But right now, what we typically do in Premiere, we'll have the tracks that we know we'll be dropping either line out or lav tracks on, and those ones will run through into a submix track, and we'll apply compression and a few other things on that, and then that submix will feed into the master track, and then we'll usually have a hard limiter on there. Sometimes we'll have a hard limiter on the submix too, with a slight gain boost as well.
Yeah.
And then we'll always have a hard limiter on the master track. So that's generally how we organize things in Premiere. And then we use Resolve for all of our color work. And the new version of Resolve has a really, really strong noise reduction tool. It's way better than what Premiere has. It's way better because we have like the Isotope suite too. We bought that a few years ago, and it's, people say it's the industry standard, but I've never had that much luck using it. And but in Resolve, they have this new thing that filters out noise, background noise. So for instance, the film that won Best Moment, they got married and there's a fountain right behind them.
Yeah.
And it's really loud, like on the lavs, on the line out. And Resolve managed to strip all that noise out. And, you could hear it. It was like a little bit, if you're paying attention, you can hear this heavy noise reduction applied to it.
Yeah.
But still, like, you get some clarity in what they're saying that if you just used the Isotope or the Premiere stuff, you wouldn't get that. So, that new tool in Resolve, it's kind of a pain in the butt because you have to like round trip it out and back, but it's worth it. Like when you get like traffic noise, air conditioning noise, fountain noise, things like that, it does an amazing job of stripping that out.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I have heard good things about Resolve, but again, it's that workflow. I'm trying my best to keep things as snappy as I can, because it's like 2 weeks a wedding is a long time to edit when you compare yourself to other photographers who are like, oh, I just get a robot to do all my post process. You're like, oh, cool. I'm done a wedding in 3 hours. I'm like, oh, God. Okay.
In Premiere, we do have like basically a wedding project template. So we have like all that stuff already set up, which I think saves time.
It does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we're the same.
How do you guys, like you said, you get couples requesting songs, and I'm sure it doesn't happen very often because of your sort of pre-production work, but how do you deal with it when a couple comes back and says, any chance we can change that song? Because that obviously, the way your films are and the way our films are, it's edited to the music, it's edited with that song for a reason, and it's almost like a whole re-edit. So how do you approach that if it does happen?
They've approved all the songs before we edit. So besides that one Armenian we mentioned, Armenian one which you asked after, and she had approved all the songs. So we don't, for the films, I don't think we've otherwise ever had someone request to change a song. For the teasers, we previously didn't send the music for the teasers because it's a quicker turnaround. Now it will depend on the couple. Some of them we will check first and some we won't, depending, because we had a couple teasers where they asked to change the music. So
Yeah. And it's always like the email you don't want to get, right? Oh, can we just see what it would sound like with different music? And you're like, no, it's like dropping in a new track. It's like the whole thing. And as you say, you're cutting to the beat often, or like just to the vibe of the music. And although having said that, I have been surprised a few times. I'll drop in a new track and I'll be like, you know what, this actually kind of works. And then some of the places where I was cutting a bit too closely to the beat, it now feels more organic because I'm not cutting so closely to the beat. And so it was kind of humbling to realize that, again, like if I relinquish a bit of like control and I know best kind of feelings about it, then often, there's something to like learn from having to do that. So
I had
a few times we've done that. It's been annoying and humbling at the same time.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience just recently. It was Amy and Fred. We shot their wedding. It was a couple of years ago, was it?
Yeah.
Was that a couple of years? And they only recently got back to us with a change from a couple of years ago.
Years later.
And it was the last track. And I thought, man, that is such a bummer. Okay, let's go back into the sequence, and obviously we keep everything. So it was a pretty, I had to relink a couple of things, but it really wasn't an issue. I got in, they'd given me a track, I'd put the track in, and lo and behold, the cuts all meshed. I don't know what it was. The song was not in the same tempo, but all the edit points worked. And I thought, that is some serious serendipity right there. Excellent. Okay. And it worked a little bit better. I won't lie. It did. But hey, like you said, you live and you learn. And
Putting a bit of a different spin on that last question then. How does the process work then? Do you send the couples a list of like 5 or 6 songs and they have to pick 2 of them, or is it that sort of process?
It depends on the couple. I think most of the time I'm thinking of using these 2 songs, like these specific 2 songs.
Right.
And then they'll say yes or no. And there are sometimes I'll say I'm thinking of using this song, and then the next song needs to be something fun. It could be this one, or this one.
Okay.
It goes through phases. I feel like we'll have 5 in a row where people are saying, yes, that's perfect, like right away. And then you'll have like 2 in a row where you go back and forth like a lot of times.
Yeah.
So it does vary, like depending on how hard it is to find things that fit their tastes, or how picky they are, or things like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really easy. I feel like it can range from like 5 minutes to 2 days picking out music.
But then, you said, Simon, like we've definitely had the experience where we'd have a couple and we're like, oh, these guys are being so picky, and we're like changing stuff. And then once we finish it, we're like, you know what? It's much better now that we took the input from the couple, and it's a better film for it. So
I think almost always I've liked the changes that they made. Other than one couple that asked us to take all of their audio out of the film after it was delivered. That's probably the only film I didn't think was better afterwards.
They just didn't like the sound of their voices.
Yeah, we've had that as well.
Yeah.
I always think strange requests, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
You wonder if they'll regret it in years to come.
yeah,
I think we made sure they had both versions.
we
Because I
did.
feel like
We
when
did.
you're older, you're not as embarrassed and you just want to hear what the other person said to you.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
then they have one they can share that they feel more comfortable with.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we're getting close to wrapping up. So we can sort of end with a few questions. What do you feel most new creatives to the wedding industry struggle with?
I don't know. It's hard to know. It's,
I don't know anybody new at the moment, I guess.
yeah, we haven't really crossed paths with them. I mean, when we were starting, there's like a Ray Roman course and then there's 31 Films. They both had online courses. And
Oh,
we
yeah.
watched both of them and they were like super helpful, like really, really helpful. I think these days there's so many different offerings. I don't know where you'd even start. So I don't know what kind of struggles people are meeting.
No.
I think our advice from like when we started would just be to try everything. You know, it took us
Yeah.
a while to figure out where we wanted to land in the industry. Like our kind of pricing is like, you know, verging toward luxury now, but we don't really want to get into the luxury market
Yeah.
just because we don't enjoy it as much. And so it took us a while to kind of like do some luxury weddings and try that and then know that we're not really heading in that direction.
Yeah.
And you know, just to try all the different things like destination, you know, we realized we didn't really like the travel. So I think it's good just to like do it all, take all the opportunities, and then just learn to say no and refine what it is that you want to do and make it sustainable and enjoyable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I think your brand builds out of that because you kind of find what you like, what type of couples you like working with best, what type of planners and venues you like working at. Because like some people love to work at the same venue lots of times because they know all the good spots. Other people want to be traveling every week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
I think that's what makes people find their style too, is just focusing on what you like, what you're good at, what you're interested in. Just like how we're interested in like people and families, so that comes out more in our films.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Very cool. Last question then, something that we always like to ask is, do you have any book recommendations or TV show recommendations or video game or any kind of...
Calm down.
Hey. Any kind of recommendations that you have enjoyed consuming, whether it be film or audio or something you've got inspiration from?
Maybe we subscribed to Mubi.com a year ago, and that's available worldwide. It's mubi.com. It's just a streaming service for mainly independent film. And
Yeah, they have everything from like super short shorts to like
Yeah.
full length films. So it's
Yeah.
a good place to find things to watch that you wouldn't otherwise watch.
yeah, and stuff that comes off of the festival circuit will often end up there. It's just a really good resource to watch. Yeah, exactly. Stuff that you
Cool.
wouldn't find necessarily on the mainstream streaming services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can just kind of build a wish list and then just go back and watch them. There's a lot of great foreign, like we watched a lot of like really good like Japanese and Taiwanese and Chinese films. And yeah, so maybe that, movie.com.
That's very cool. And there's a 7-day free trial. So
There you go.
there you go. Cool.
Can't argue with that.
Indeed, you cannot. Sorry, back to my notes. Well, we have come to the end of our podcast. My goodness. Thank you very much for joining us for this over 2 hours ramble, which is insane. Where can people find you online?
We're thequailandthedove.com, and then on Instagram we're at thequailandthedove.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. We're in a couple of other places, but not very effectively.
Yes, we're all on YouTube and Facebook and Vimeo and things. But anyway, yeah.
Awesome. And
Thanks, guys.
people can find us at Perspective by Cinemate, and our website is perspectivebycinemate.com. Join us on Facebook, Instagram, and that's where you can find us. Thank you very much for sponsoring our episode with Jack, who does amazing insurance-y stuff. If you have enjoyed this conversation, you can hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. We hope to see you on the next episode. However,
In the meantime,
enjoy your life.